We all have something we believe in: hopes, dreams, goals, expectations, things that we build our plans around. And if we had time, we could go around the room and each share a different story that talks about the plans that we all have and had that we built our journey on based on those plans and expectations. And for each of us, life is often so very good. It could be our job. It could be our lives. It could be our relationship. No matter what, many times we think life is so good. And this is a picture of my husband and I. We met in Minnesota. I started my life out in the East Coast. Born in Georgia, moved to North Carolina, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, and ended up in Texas in high school. And that's where I fell in love with your state, the spirit of Texas. And I was here in high school in the Bedford-Euless Hurst area, went to college in the University of Texas of Austin, and marched in the Longhorn Band for 4 years, and truly, truly loved Texas. I had never been in a state as long as I lived here, and it never felt as loved and as accepted as I did when I finally made it to the state. When I graduated, I accepted my first position. I was a graduate of marketing, sales, and customer support. My degree was a bachelor's in business from the university. And so I accepted my first position with Phillips Petroleum, and they were headquartered in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. So that's where my first position took me, was to Oklahoma. Now, I grew up as an only child, and I was a latchkey kid most of my life. Amazing parents, amazing support system. But my dad grew up teaching me. He was a executive in the telecommunications industry. So he really taught me from an early age that when a company teaches you or to ask you to jump, you ask how high, and you always dress to impress. And I was taught at an early age that anybody older than you is an automatic yes ma'am or yes sir. And so whether you disagree or agree with them, it's always yes ma'am or yes sir to their face. And so that's how I was brought up. So when I was in Oklahoma with my first job for about 6 months, they needed a new sales rep and a team player in Minnesota. So given my upbringing, I thought, perfect, a great job opportunity, and I will be a team player and say yes. What I didn't realize was what Minnesota looked like in January of 1997 until I got there. And I realized, as a Southern gal, how much snow there was and how unprepared I was to live in that much snow in January of 1997. And when I got there, I was rethinking my thinking skills when I accepted that position. But I had accepted Christ as my personal Savior my senior year of high school. My high school was actually logistically located across the street from a Baptist church. And so I knew when I was finally out on my own, the perfect way to get a good foundation of friends and start my life out properly was to find a church. So I found the first church when I first moved to Minnesota that I could actually find within all the snow, and that's how I found my first group of friends and what became my boyfriend and then my husband, Danis. Now, at the time that we were dating, I was not that serious. I was just trying to get through daily life. But apparently he was pretty serious. So I came back to Texas to be at my best friend's wedding, and my parents said, I know you're unhappy, and by that point they had moved back to Texas. So while I was moving to Minnesota, they were moving from Florida to Texas. And they said, just maintain status quo, we'll get you through this. And I went back to Minnesota after the wedding, and my boyfriend at the time knew that I was about to pack up and hightail it back home and thought, well, I have a great job at Northwest Airlines. I'm building my dream house, and the only thing I'm missing is a wife. And here's my wife, and she's about to go home to Texas. So the best way to solve this problem is to ask her to marry me. So after dating for 6 weeks, that's exactly what he did. He asked me to marry him. And as he's standing in front of me, at popping the big question with a ring. He was very prepared. I thought in a split second, I have a huge decision to make. I could say no and make the very worst decision of my entire life, or I could say yes with a very long engagement and have time to think about this later. And he did say he had prayed about it. And I thought, well, at least one of us has prayed about it. And if I say yes with a long engagement, that does give me time to have a no later. So that's what I said. I said yes with a long engagement. And when I called my parents that night to inform them that I'm now engaged to be married, I think their first words were, "What happened to status quo? And we just saw you, and you didn't say anything about even dating anyone, let alone getting engaged to be married." So, needless to say, we were engaged for a year. We got married here in Dallas in the Las Colinas area in March 1998, started our life out in Minnesota. We both had jobs at Northwest Airlines, me on the travel agent side in customer service. My husband was an aircraft mechanic, and we had a really amazing life. We traveled a lot, and things were going really well. The one dream I really had that I really wanted at that point was to be a mom. And I'm a very type A organized personality, and so I started taking all the steps necessary to be a mom. And they always say, before you're a mom, you should get a dog. So that's what we did. We got a dog. We had the minivan. We had the house with the fenced-in backyard. And we were all prepared. We just didn't have the child. And so I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm working too hard and I'm traveling a lot. So my church offered me a job as their office manager. My husband and I were on opposite schedules because he was an aircraft mechanic. He worked at night and I worked during the day. And so I was also the event coordinator at our church. So I was at the church a lot. So they offered me a full-time job as their office manager. I thought, this is perfect. I will slow life down and I will become pregnant. I'll be a great mom. Then I'll resign from this position and we'll live happily ever after. What I didn't realize is I was actually a walking time bomb. And 3 weeks into that job, in January of 2003, I suffered a massive hemorrhagic stroke. 1 minute, I was perfectly fine, and the next minute, the lights completely went out. And I share this because I think that's how it is with many of us. Life is so good until it isn't. And we don't even realize how good life is until in the blink of the eye, something goes wrong. And then we realize how good we had it. But we don't realize how good we have it until something goes wrong. And then we realize, oh, life was really good until it isn't. And that truly was how life was. We thought that we had struggles, and I so desperately wanted to be a mom until all of a sudden this major medical challenge happened, and I realized being a mom was minimal compared to what we were facing. But at age 29, when the stroke happened, I had no idea what the signs of the stroke were. And I almost didn't live because I didn't get help in enough time. And so I'm very proactive now in the community in which I live to let people know the signs of stroke because I really didn't know what those signs were. But I didn't feel well the day I had my stroke. I had a massive headache, sick to my stomach, and my left arm felt very numb. But I just thought that I had pulled something working out the night before, or that maybe I was just sick. But it was when my left leg went numb and I fell from my chair that we called 911. And the last thing I remember was the paramedics coming. My parents lived nearby. They had moved from Texas to Minnesota at that point to be close to us. I remember them coming to the church. And again, remember, I'm type A personality. I remember the paramedics coming, and I said to them, my purse is right over there if you need my insurance card. And I'm sure they're thinking at that point, lady, we are going to try and save your life. We could care less about your insurance card. But I had no idea. I was having a massive stroke. The stroke was caused by a malformation of blood vessels on the right side of my brain. It was a birth defect that I had had all my life. And God had, in his grace and mercy, waited until that moment when I was safe with coworkers and a Bible study going on downstairs on a Friday afternoon when churches are usually closed. to have people there to help me in a safe environment for me to have this massive stroke. We were right in between two amazing trips to Europe. We had just arrived home from one trip where we had gone to see our best friends who lived in Norway, and we were getting ready for a second trip to London to see them again. And right smack dab in between those two trips is when I had this stroke. So I could go one direction and say, I can't believe I had this massive stroke that completely changed everything. Or I've chosen to go the other direction and be so incredibly grateful that I was where I was. Back in 2003, 80% of hemorrhagic stroke survivors never survive. And 6 months post-stroke, 20% do not live an independent life. So I have taken the perspective of gratitude, and I'm so grateful that not only did God allow me to survive, but He's given me the traits to live a life of thriving in my new normal. And that's what I speak a lot on, is we cannot control our challenges many times, but we always have the ability to make a choice and a reaction to our circumstances. I was in the hospital for a total of 2 months. I went through a second 11-hour brain surgery to remove the malformation. And when I speak to my stroke community, and some of you may be able to relate if you've gone through medical challenges, I talk to them a lot about just what I went through as far as a loss of dignity and being able to have any independence. The inability to get up, the inability to go to the bathroom, the inability to take a shower. I remember not being able to do anything on my own and actually having to make that decision whether I was going to push the nurse button and have a nurse help me or lay awake at night and wait until morning because I wouldn't want to bother someone. And those thoughts still go through my mind when I'm speaking, especially to other stroke survivors and others that have gone through medical challenges that, there's a huge shift when you go from being independent to dependent. And it is so important for caregivers when they take that on, whether you are helping a loved one or you're helping someone because of older age, to really take care of yourself. My mom really became my caregiver because my husband was busy at work, and she really didn't allow herself the respite she needed. And that's so important for caregivers to give themselves the respite they need when something like this happens. We went home, and 2 months after my stroke, I was in a wheelchair. By that time, I truly went from not being able to move at all. I had completely lost my left side to being able to sit up, stand, walk with assistance, and go home in a wheelchair. So I made a lot of progress extremely quickly. We went home. We started living with my parents because of the stairs in our house, and my husband was back at work. However, this was right after 9/11, and as many of you probably remember, the aviation industry was not healthy back then. And 6 months post-stroke, my husband unfortunately lost his job. So that was another big transition, and God faithfully gave us a new opportunity in Arizona. So that's how we transitioned from Minnesota to Arizona. We sold our house. My parents sold their house. We sold our first dog and said goodbye to all our friends and family. And we made the trek with me in a wheelchair to Arizona to start life over again. Emotionally, looking back, I think that was a very difficult transition for me because at that point, I was a 30-year-old starting all over, and no one knew who I really was when they met me. And all they saw was, in my mind, a disabled individual. And I didn't know how to relate to other people. And it's taken me years to realize the importance of where I was and where I am today. The other medical challenge we went through is when we moved to Arizona, I developed epilepsy from the stroke. And so we went through years of seizure management and getting me back on track. But one of the biggest blessings of coming to Arizona is I found an amazing neurotherapy clinic, and they truly believed, and the power of repetition and a lot of therapy. I made it my full-time job, working sometimes 7 to 8 hours a day for years and years on end. I was the youngest person at Silver Sneakers, and really spent a lot of time working on my mobility and my independence. And in my mind, I was the Energizer Bunny without rechargeable batteries. I just wanted to get better. I just wanted to be that mom that I still wanted to be when the lights went out. And my best way of becoming that mom was to get better. Back in 2003, the stroke recovery industry, per se, did not really address mental and emotional healing like they are now. It was all very physical recovery. So it was always goals and how to get from point A to point B. Based on my personality, that was great. I love to exercise, and I was already goal-oriented. But I didn't realize until years later the missing piece of my healing journey was that emotional and mental piece. And it took its toll. And so I've had to learn through my journey that it's a whole body healing when we go through any medical challenge. And we have to heal physically, emotionally, and mentally anytime we go through any medical challenge. But we decided 8 years post-stroke that we truly did want to be parents, and it was really important to us. We had always been very active, involved in Compassion International Ministries. Our first little boy was 5 years old from the Philippines, Brandon. And so we decided when it was time to become parents that we wanted to adopt. My family was very worried about me being in a parenting journey biologically. They were worried about my medicines. They were worried about the epilepsy. They were worried about all the unknowns. They were worried about my disability. So we decided to embark on an adoption journey. Now, I had a very serious conversation with God about this adoption journey. We knew we wanted to adopt older children. We knew we wanted to give a forever family to kids that might not have one. But I really was a boy mom. I wanted boys. We wanted two, and I loved sports. I'm not a violent person, but I really love football, basketball, hit 'em, beat 'em up type things. I am not a drama person. I'm not a Barbie person. I'm not a doll person. So I pretty much said to God, let's handpick our older children and let's make them two boys. And I thought we had a pretty good agreement going on until we got our referral from Colombia. We decided Latino countries were where we were going to choose. And as you can see, we were blessed with two girls and a boy. So you can see God really listened to my plan well, and he agreed wholeheartedly with what I said to him. Apparently, I needed some drama in my life, and as adult children, I still have a lot of drama in my life. Our kids were adopted age 6, 8, and 10, and they are now 21, 23, and 25. It was a journey that I was not prepared for, and it was a journey of blessings and challenges. I tell my kids now I am forever grateful that they allowed me to be mom, that I had the opportunity to be mom, but it truly was one that I wasn't prepared for, and I wish we had had more training and more opportunities to be prepared before we embarked on that journey. But I think no matter whether we're adopted parents, foster parents, parents through marriage, or biological parents, we're never totally prepared. And it's a journey we're constantly learning from. My children, my girls are both married now, and we have a total of 4 grandchildren with one more on the way. So we truly were able to do what God asked us to do, and that is provide a forever family. And my girls have been able to carry on the legacy of love, and I always tell them, you have been able to do what I couldn't do, and that is love your children from conception and show them the love that I really was not able to give you from birth. And so, God in his faithfulness truly does answer our prayers in so many ways. It just doesn't always look like exactly like we think it's going to. in 2020 and 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic, is when I got this amazing call to write. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I just felt like I had all this stuff inside of me I needed to get out to share. So I started writing, and a first book came out called Choices. When you're faced with a challenge, what choice will you make? And my husband would come in at night and ask, what are you doing? And I would say, oh, I'm busy writing and writing my book. And he would laugh and just chuckle. And 6 months later, my book was done. And he was just like, I didn't really believe you. I didn't think you were really writing a book. But God is so good, because what we think is our plans are really never our plans. My book was finished. I started looking for publishers, and plan to have it published in March of 2022. In January of that year, I was pre-diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And so the book came out in March. In April, I had a full hysterectomy. And thankfully, I'm cancer-free through the hysterectomy. But I also, thank you. I also found out with that hysterectomy that I was never able to have kids. I was not born with the right anatomy. And so my kids all along were my kids. And so that just changed everything. But when the book came out, I chose to go back into the cancer center after I recovered from surgery and start volunteering and using my joy and love for writing with cancer patients. And that taught me so much. And so I'm so grateful for that journey, because if I not had that diagnosis, although I didn't have a full cancer diagnosis, it gave me some of the most beautiful friendships and some of the hardest losses, but some of the biggest change in perspective. And for that, I will always be extremely grateful. This video is one I completely love, because it just shows you that we never know what life's going to look like, just like this race. It starts out our race, just like this, starts out in life with our plans, and but challenges happen, and we never know when a challenge is going to happen. And many times at the beginning of a year, we set goals, and when things happen, your peers keep going and they keep running the race, and we often get left behind when we have something happen to us. And we have to decide, are we going to get stuck, or are we going to keep going? And this gentleman shows us here, his stride is different, but he keeps going. And that's the point. When we go through tough challenges, we have a choice. Are we going to stop, or are we going to keep going? And in this case, he just keeps going. And his dad comes down to be with him. And I love this so much, because although it's his human father, it's the same thing with our Heavenly Father. Our Heavenly Father is always there for us, and we just have to turn to Him and let Him come and comfort us. And I love so much this is called Life Together, because life together is so important, especially when we're going through tough things. It's hard sometimes to be vulnerable to others, but we need our community. We need people to come alongside of us. We need people to not be against us, but for us. And sometimes that's vulnerability to say, hey, I need your help. And that's why it's important to reach out to others, but most importantly, to reach out to our Creator, our God, and be honest with Him. And He can take our anger, He can take our frustration, as well as our joy, and He's always there for us. So I love this video so much, because although this is His human Father, our Heavenly Father is right there beside us just as much. He's just waiting for us to take His hand, partner with Him every step of the way. And He never leaves us, never forsakes us. And He's always there just waiting for us to depend on Him and to hold us up just like this. And this is a prime example of, God has enabled me to thrive in my new normal, just like this gentleman. It just doesn't always look exactly like we think it's going to. And I put a lot of the notes on the handouts, but again, we can't control our challenges, but we always have a choice and a reaction to our uncontrollable circumstances. And I think so many times, one of the things I went through is feeling alone and unsupported from friends. And I realized that it's not that they don't care about me. It's just that sometimes people can't relate to what you're going through. And No one else is going to walk in your exact footsteps. That's why it's important that you remember that your Creator is the one that never leaves you, because He's never surprised by what you've gone through. And that your disability, and we all have them, is not what defines you, and it's not your identity. I have grown to actually appreciate that I have a physical disability, because I don't have to prove to anyone what's going on. And I used to think of it as a downside. And now, as I've gotten to know more and more people that have an invisible disability, I am actually grateful that what you see is what you get. And so for those of you that might have an invisible disability or an emotional disability, I am so sorry, because it is harder for you than it is for me. And I just want to remind you to depend on your God above all else and never lose the hope and the joy that He will bring to you through your trials and challenges. And then many times when we take our eyes off of us and put it on other people, and we concentrate on serving others, that brings so much healing. My perspective, like I said, completely changed when I went to the cancer center and started serving others. It just changes everything. I'll leave you with 2 action opportunities as I close today, moving forward. And one is, when you look at other people that might not be like yourself, take it upon yourself to move outside your comfort zone. Sometimes just to say hi, how are you? Especially if you're at church or you're at a function, that if you get that little tickle that says, oh gosh, maybe I should meet her, but gosh, what if she's not like me? Or then I'm caught in a corner and I don't really want to be her friend, but now I'm stuck to be her friend. You never know what that one hello is going to bloom into the most beautiful friendship. I think of all the people that took a chance on me, and their one hello turned into such a beautiful support system for me. And then the second thing is we don't know how other people can support us sometimes, but we can support and encourage others the way our heart desires to be supported. And so I encourage you to take it upon yourself to encourage and support others just how you desire to be supported. Cards, phone calls, texts, anytime someone's laid on your heart, take it upon yourself not to waste time, because tomorrow might be too late. And then I just wanted to close by just reminding you, when life doesn't go exactly as you planned, just remember to depend on the one who created you, and to live strong, pursuing His bigger plan and purpose for your journey. My name is Lori Vober, and it truly has been a pleasure sharing with you today. Thank you.